What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. And break down what's happening with the economic calendar moving forward, what's going on with news involving the markets, what you should be watching for Tesla stock, as I have important articles to be breaking down and technicals. But before I begin devil's information, before I break down all the charts for all these tickers, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, deposit $100, you are guaranteed 7 free stocks. And the offer ends very soon, in just about 8 days from now. Anyways, for Tesla, I just wanted to call out that right now Tesla's a slight uptrend right over here as this thing was continuing to shuffle for today. We had some negative news that came out involving more discounts being extended for Tesla when it comes to their rental lease companies, essentially developing and kind of coming up with new policies for Tesla. And with them trying to acquire a lot more of them and more of these discounts, as well as a little bit negative for Tesla, we got some criticism here and there. That's why the share price was down just a bit, but it was holding a key support, and we didn't really see a massive crash or anything like that. It was only down about 1%. We'll be watching to see how Tesla moves from here. So we'll be breaking down more details about the technicals in just a couple of minutes. But let me first talk about the news and talk about what's happening for tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be Tuesday, May 21st, 2024. Please know that at 9 o'clock, 9:05 and 9:10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time before the market opens, we have Barkin, Waller, Williams, and Bostic starting their speeches. And these speeches could go on for over an hour, so this is going to take quite some time. Then at 11:30 a.m., we have the 43-day bill auction coming out. Then Bart gives a speech at 11:45, and that's pretty much it for speeches until the end of the day when we have Bostic, Collins, and Mester. But we have a bunch of Fed speakers again for today. For tomorrow. And then also for today, we had a bunch of them. They caused the market to pump a bit. So we're going to see if the same thing happens for tomorrow once we see more of these Fed speakers. So that's going to be very, very important. Can't wait to see what else they have to say. For the fear and greed index, currently the market is very, very greedy. We're not at extreme greed just yet, but we're still seeing greed making up the majority of sentiment. For market momentum, currently things are quite greedy as, once again, buyers are continuing to defend. And then when it comes to other indicators, the puts and call option positioning is down to the 0.7 area because right now a lot of puts are being closed and calls are making up the majority of sentiment. For market volatility, right now we're actually seeing a bit of a dip right here in terms of the current position. And with this dipping, the way it's dipping, that's going to be very important for how things end up developing. So I'll be watching to see what happens with market volatility. With this dipping really, really hard, there's no sign that right now the market's rejection or anything like that. The VIX still looks like it has a bit more downside. It has a gap to fill below. For earnings, we have some very important stuff for the week. We just had Zoom announce its earnings today. I'll talk about that in just a minute. But for tomorrow, please remember that we have Macy's, Lowe's, AutoZone, and a couple of retail announcing their earnings. And then for Wednesday, we have Target and TJ Maxx, not to mention the one and only Nvda after the market closes. That's going to be very important. It's going to cause a big day for the market. It's a big move for Tesla and the others, and I can't wait to see what ends up being announced. For Zoom, they basically announced their earnings. They're actually down just a little bit in the after hours. Earnings were not that great. We had total revenue at about $1.1 billion, up 3.2% year over year. And then we also had their first quarter enterprise revenue at $666 million. That's up 5.3%. Their EPS was decent overall, but when it comes to their guidance, their revenue is actually a little bit lower than what expectations wanted to be. So their guidance for the fiscal 2025 are not that great. But when it comes to things moving forward, I would say that overall earnings were quite decent. So that's why the share price is still down. Guidance was not what we wanted it to be, but that's pretty much it, at least for that. For Tesla, there's some news coming out that once again, Elon Musk went to Indonesia, and Tesla is once again in talks with many important officials to potentially open up a battery material facility because they have a very, very nice supply of nickel over there. Not to mention the fact that a potential gigafactory is also in the talks right now. So Elon Musk did mention this. He was talking with many important officials as he went over there for a very important event. And that's very, very great news. Musk went there for Starlink and many other of his other companies. But for now, I just want to say that this is great news for Tesla, and I can't wait to see what the future holds. Many people do criticize Tesla for not having the best sales right now. You could argue that, but for the long term, this will be a big winner because once again, Tesla still has a lot of sales coming for the long term. And the demand for Teslas will get much higher as time goes on, in my personal opinion, especially with new products coming out. Now, when it comes to Tesla, I want to say that right now there's been some negative news that came out. That's part of why the share price kind of dipped. Tesla had these price cuts which hammered rental companies that bought the EVs, and now with them losing the valuations relative to before, they've been complaining that with all these high repair costs, with all these lower valuations, it's hurting their business model. So as a result, Tesla is trying to maintain their demand, maintain their strength by essentially continuing to offer more discounts by about $2,000 or about 2,100 euros. And this is more common like in Germany and other countries, but also here in the US. With this happening, they're trying to actually maintain more volume. They're trying to actually continue to get demand up there and kind of offset some of the more expenditures for these rental companies. But excuse me, the issue is this is going to feed into their margins. And that was not the best of news since it technically is implying more price cuts for some companies. So it's not the best of news. That's why Tesla was down just a bit. Also, we had about 62 million in volume, a little bit below average. Short volume relative to prices also going up just a little bit as Tesla's getting shorted more. And then Cantor Fitzgerald gave Tesla an overweight rating. The price price ratio is down just a bit towards that these lower levels, which is showing some weakness, at least to some extent. Tuesdays, however, are green about 52% of the time for Tesla. So we'll see if we get a green day for tomorrow as a result of this and what the developments are moving forward as time goes on. So with that being said, guys, I wanted to make it very clear that right now the market's in a very, very critical place, and we'll be watching to see what developments end up coming from here. Tesla is historically very green in June, so we'll see if that trend continues, and we'll see more volatility at 10 a.m. and also around noon historically for Tesla. With that being said, let's talk about Tesla. Let's actually maintain what I think is going to play out. So for Tesla, just to be very frank with everyone, we have resistance at this 175. So we have a lot of EMAs over here. If we break through this, watch 176. And if that breaks, look for 178 as our resistance, which is where we have this imbalance. If we lose this white trend line of our support, see how it's kind of holding this trend line right here? Lose that, we're going to be dipping all the way down to about 172, then eventually 170. So I favor that this is actually going to be pushing just a little bit higher. We could see a little push to the upside temporarily, but it might not be that crazy of a move because it depends on the markets. So it depends on the news and such. We are holding this white trend line. As long as we hold this, look for a rebound to 176. If we lose the trend line, we're going to be dipping back down. As long as we don't get bad news, I do favor a little bounce, and I think that Tesla could try to hold up and try to retest 176 and then continue to shuffle. Now, whether or not we make a big move or not, or if we get a big pump or not, it depends on Nvidia's earnings as well on Wednesday. I think that's going to have a big effect on Tesla's. Nvidia is a major supplier for Tesla. So we'll see what happens with that as well. It's going to be very important. So that's going to play a big role where Tesla ends up moving. But I do favor that. I do favor that Tesla's going to try to hold this white trend line right here, and we might see this actually help Tesla moving forward. So I think that Tesla's building some momentum with this consolidation. I can't wait to see what happens for tomorrow. But looking at SPY, something else is very, very interesting on the chart. As far as SPY goes, we have a nice cup and handle like structure that's trying to develop. But whether or not this develops or whether or not this pans out depends on different factors. So I know a lot of people are trying to say that, hey, we have a double top here, we're about to get a rejection. Well, we need confirmation right now because there's no confirmation of that. If you're bullish on SPY, you want to see this thing basically hold support right here, kind of shuffle for a bit, and this looks a little bit more probable to me. That's going to try to rebound and eventually try to break this high going into Wednesday or such. We do have tough resistance at this 531.5 area, and I did call out that level in my previous video. So I mentioned to you all that we had this little dip right over here. When this dip happened, we saw a very, very nice rebound right up to the all-time high. So that held up very nicely, and the market held up for me a cup and handle. If we were to turn bearish, you want to see SPY essentially lose 528 like this. We need a bad piece of news. Maybe Nvidia doesn't do well for earnings or something bad happens. Then we could be dipping down to 525. Then we could try to fill our gap below. But there's no sign of this little breakdown right now below 528 and below our 50 EMA. As of right now, the chart is holding up nicely. It looks like we have a cup and handle. So this one, this green line looks more probable, looks more likely it's going to try to push higher for another new all-time high. And we could try to inch higher. Watch 531.5 is tough resistance. We actually broke the all-time high today, so there is potential for it to go a little higher. And then for support, watch 529, 528. We have the 50 EMA and the 529s, followed by 528 as key support. So I'll be watching that very, very carefully. But the upside does look more probable. For NVIDIA, the upside also looks more probable if I kind of close all of these real quick and I actually pull up the 4-hour time frame. What you'll notice is that we have a nice accumulation structure. I'm actually liking this technical setup. It's been on a very, very strong uptrend. I think that NVIDIA is going to likely dip to about 944. Could be test 944 to 945, then start pushing up to about 960s. the 960s, excuse me. So I think that Nvidia is going to likely see a little dip and then a bounce, and I think that we're going to be looking for 960 plus, and we're going to be looking for a nice push approaching earnings. So there's going to be a lot of hype and a lot of excitement. So I find that to be very, very probable. For the triple Q, I'm seeing something else that's very interesting. Right now, the triple Q is also breaking its all-time highs, looking very bullish, and it's holding up very nicely. So we have a very, very strong uptrend right here. There's no sign of the uptrend kind of being broken. If I pull up the hourly time frame like this, what you'll see is that this has been holding up very well. We have resistance that's also approaching. So I think that we could retest our 20 EMA, this 453 area, then try to bounce through this and start pushing for 455.5, then eventually 456.25. I do find that to be very probable. If we lose 453, watch 452. If that fails us, we could be dipping down to 450. There's no sign of it losing 452, so the odds favor the upside. So look for a dip into the 453 area, then a bounce and a push all the way up towards the 455.5 to 456.25 area. So a dip and a bounce is very probable. I do favor upside, and we'll see how things go at least from there. For Aapl, Apple's also looking a bit more bullish. We have resistance at this 190.5 area. We have support at 189. I favor that this thing is going to try to push a little bit higher. We could actually retest 190 and start pushing higher to 192 plus. So I favor upside a little bit more. I find that to be a bit more probable looking at the current trend and how it's been kind of holding up. So look for a little dip and a bounce, and I do see upside as being a stronger possibility. For Bitcoin, I know a lot of people are interested in this. We have a nice breakout right now. We've actually broken past 70,000. We're pushing up to about 72,500 in my personal opinion. It's continuing to break out, looking very, very strong. And I see some more upside potential over here. So look for 72,500 as a potential target. It's still looking very, very bullish with this breakout. And this could actually be a very, very big sign. But with that being said, guys, let me make it very clear that that is it for my main five I typically talk about. I'm going to now be very, very brief with the rest of these and just talk about what other tickers and what other charts are telling us. So going back to, we're going to start off with Neo stock. I'm going to be very quick with this. We're just trading sideways for now. Watch resistance at 5.3 and support at 5 flat. We'll be waiting for the month of June. Once we get our May deliveries, that's when we could be looking for a bigger move. So I'll wait for that. For Palantir, the chart, in my personal opinion, looks a little bit more bearish on the 4-hour time frame. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually dip just a little bit more towards the lower 21s. Then we bounce. So look for a little dip all the way down to lower 21s and a bounce back up as time goes on. For Supermicro, in my opinion, is testing resistance at this 900 area. We have a support at 883. Could we dip down to 883 then bounce? Yes, we could, but we'll be watching to see what the move ends up being from here. But I think that 883 could be tested, and we'll see if we get a bounce or not. But that's going to be very pivotal for the way we end up moving. But look for that. There's also going to be a big reaction after we get Nvidia's earnings, so watch for that. Look for a little dip and a bounce, and overall, Nvidia will have a big role in where we end up moving for the next couple of days. For Rivian, in my opinion, is looking a little bit weak. We have a head and shoulders like structure. Watch for a test of 10.22. If we lose that, we're going to be sinking down to 10. If we bounce off that, we're going to be pushing back up to about 10.5. Overall, I do favor that it's going to actually dip a little bit. It looks a little bit weak, technically speaking. So I'll be watching for that very, very carefully. For SoFi, we're looking a little bit more bearish as well, in my personal opinion, because of the fact that right now there's a little bit of a shift in the way that we are moving, and we're going to be looking to see other changes as well moving forward. But I do anticipate that SoFi is going to dip a little bit towards the 7 area for a little bit of a dip, so watch for that very, very carefully. For the IWM Russell 2000, we look bullish overall. We're on a very, very strong uptrend. I think that 211 is going to likely come. Could we dip to 207.8 first? Yes, we could. We could dip into the 207s, then bounce, and we're going to be looking for a test of this high before anything else. So I think there's still some more upside potential. For AMD, the technicals look bullish as we have a nice inverse head and shoulders. We are trading sideways as we have support currently at this 162.5 area and also at 165, and we have resistance at 170 followed by the imbalance at 178. With inverse head and shoulders, I do favor upside as being a stronger possibility. But in order for this to play out, in order for us to really get that push, we need to see Nvidia's earnings pan out and other factors like that. But I do favor the upside a bit more. I'll be watching to see how things end up moving from here. So look for a little dip towards 165, then a nice bounce moving forward towards 172, and we'll see how things end up moving from here. For ARM is actually approaching our 50 EMA at this 110 area. If we do lose this, we're going to be dipping all the way down towards this imbalance at 105. And we have resistance at 112. If we break through this, we're going to be looking for a push all the way up here. So I think we could actually dip a little bit more, but watch and see how it reacts to 110. If we lose this, look for a little dip and a bounce after that. For Coin is looking a little bit more bullish in my personal opinion. I think we could be going all the way up to this 230 area, maybe a little bit higher into the like low 230s. Then we're going to be looking for some chop up here because that's where we have this type of resistance. So look for 232 around that area, some sideways price action, see if we get a rejection or not. But I do see a little bit more upside potential for it. For Amazon, we're looking a little bit more bearish on the 4-hour time frame. Look at 183. If we lose this, we could be dipping all the way down to like 181. So just be a little bit careful. I could see a little dip coming, so be very mindful of that. Meta is also looking a little bit weak right here. Excuse me. It's looking a little bit weak. We lost 469, which is not the best of news. So it could be dipping down towards 465. So watch for that very carefully. For Microsoft, we're on a very, very nice uptrend holding our 20 EMA. I did call that we might touch this and then start pushing higher. So I could see it go a little bit higher. It might go a little bit higher towards the resistance zone at this 428 area. I could be looking for a test of that. So it might go a little bit higher. So watch and see what the reaction is from there. For Google, we're also looking a little bit more bullish. Going to be looking for a test of 180, but resistance is going to be kind of tough as we're kind of churning here, and we have a very, very big fight coming. So I think it might touch 180, then reject and come back down towards 175. Look for a pop and drop like structure. GME is trying to bounce just a bit. Going to be looking for a test of about 24.46 and 26.66. But then we could reject anyways because the move does not look that big. It doesn't look that significant to me. But it might just be a small little bounce, so watch for that. Same thing with AMC. We're going to be looking for a test of about $5. Then we'll see what the move is from there afterwards. For DJT, this is looking a little bit more bearish. Could be looking for a test of the 47s, so watch for that very carefully. And then we'll see what happens, at least with that moving forward. That's going to be very key for how we end up moving. The VIX is in a very, very critical position because we have a nice gap to fill below, and we're still on a big downtrend. So there's no sign of the VIX really bouncing yet. We are historically in a very, very important support where we do love to bounce, or at least hold up for now, kind of shuffle. So there's no sign that the VIX is essentially bouncing yet. So I'll be watching to see if that ends up being the case. I'll be very, very patient, at least nonetheless. That's going to be very key. I think we could dip a little bit lower to fill this gap, and that could be because the market is going to push higher. So it's still telling us the market may go higher, but we'll see what happens from there. The 10-year treasury yield is going to kind of like react to what happens with all these Fed speakers. So we'll see if we see a push for about 4.5. It's not really affecting the market too much. And then for the dollar index, we're still kind of trading flat in a sideways trend. We do have an imbalance fill, so it might go a little higher towards 104.8, but see if we get a rejection off that or not. Not looking that strong, looking more sideways, if anything else. So, with that being said, guys, I just want to thank you all so much for listening. Know that Tesla's in a very, very critical place right now, kind of trading within this range. There's a slight uptrend, so it does have some upside potential, but we'll see how it ends up moving from here. If we lose this white trend line of support, if it gets bad news, we're dipping all the way down to 172 again, if not lower, 168. If we hold the trend line, we could be bouncing up for 176. The chart does favor trying to hold the trend line for now, but just to be safe, we'll wait and see for confirmation. So let's see what Tesla does. Do we lose the trend line or not? I'm going to be very patient for now, and just know that the big catalyst for this is going to be Nvidia's earnings on Wednesday. So we're getting very close to it, so we'll see how things go. With that being said, that's my prediction for the time being, that we might actually try to hold this trend line, try to rebound just a bit towards 176. Then just continue to shuffle. That's more probable, at least from a technical standpoint. But once again, guys, the move for tomorrow doesn't matter as much. What matters a lot more is going to be Nvidia's earnings. All right. So thank you all for listening. Please have an absolutely incredible rest of the day. I really appreciate your guys' attentions. Please have a great evening, and I'll see you guys tomorrow before the market opens to give you guys an update. Do not forget that we have a lot of Fed chit chat for tomorrow. A lot of these guys are going to be speaking a lot. They're going to be just doing what they have to do, so it might affect the markets. So we'll see how things go. With that being said, thank you for listening. Have a great day, and peace out.